Hey guys, I'm Sam. Welcome to my channel. I know this topic may seem to be irrelevant as lately only one topic, if it comes to Russia, has been discussed, of course, but I truly believe that everything's linked. So this video is history of the last 30 years of lives of gay people and at the same time evolution of homophobia here in Russia. We're going to see what it was like before Putin came to power in late 1999, early 2000, then what it was like in the brightest in this context period of our country, mostly known across the globe thanks to a person named Ivan Shapovalov, a guy who gave the world tattoo. And eventually we're going to see how the hell it all happened. The country that gave the world tattoo passing a law related to gay propaganda.
Spoiler, the country has been super homophobic at all times.
I was growing up during the first post-Soviet decade, the turbulent 90s, aka the wild 90s, the freewheeling 90s. The 90s, those were crazy times. The country was not closed already, there was no that iron curtain any longer, and the entertainment industry, it was growing rapidly. I truly believe that the government didn't give a damn about gay people back then. They were like eccentric people, like clowns. On TV we were only shown two gay singers, Russian Elton John.
I'm sorry, Sir Elton, for this comparison.
So Russian Elton John Boris Moiseev and another one, Sergei Pyankin. They were mostly accepted like cringe. Really, the former was a really talented dancer and choreographer, and the later he has tremendous vocal technique. But in fact, both of them were accepted like cringe and nothing more. Like I said, they were like clones for the post-Soviet people. What I can remember every time these two singers were shown on TV, everyone in my family tried to focus attention away from the TV set. Meanwhile, my parents, my mom and my granny, my aunts and uncles, mostly aunts, my female neighbors from the neighborhood who were my mom and my granny's friends, they were all the time discussing some stupid things about famous people shown to them on TV.
Channel 1 CEO is said to be gay. Have you heard of it? Yeah? Oh, I always knew there's something wrong with him. Oh, you know that singer Kirkorov, the king of pop? He married that female alt singer just because he wanted to hide the fact that he's gay. Oh, that singer is gay too? Oh my god, no way. His voice is quite manly.
So this kind of talks, they were everywhere. When we were in the kitchen, when we were driving somewhere. And spreading gossips about pop stars is probably not bad. That's what pop stars exist for, partially. But the talks, the discussions themselves, they were in a negative way. Like it was something wrong, and it was also like, oh, my son, of course not, he will never be gay. Being told in an incomplete family. But I believe that people across the globe, even in the United States in 90s, they were not as modern and liberal as nowadays. I believe prejudice existed in the 90s in the United States even. So during the 90s, Russia was experiencing the real collapse, the dissipation of the Soviet Union and its values. But in fact, the old state was never changed with the new liberal state. In this sense, the 90s were really the time of all possible liberties. Everyone was doing what they were willing to do. But for some reason, it didn't lead to the liberal democracy. Probably anarchy. At the turn of the millennium, Russia's show business, we're not talking about show business, but these topics are linked for what it's worth. Entertainers play really huge roles in lives of ordinary people in any country. I truly believe that. So Russia's show business was broken, dynamited by the genius of one man, Ivan Shapovalov, the man who coined tattoo. The whole world learned that Russian music was not only about this. And at the same time, tattoo was not about music at all. It was about thousands and millions of people across the globe who trusted the two girls, who maybe even trusted that Russia was the country that dictated and manifested free love. In fact, Russian government didn't give a damn. First 5 or even 10 years of the 21st century, it was basically continuation of the freewheeling 90s with all their possible liberties. But of course, in society, a negative attitude towards gay people existed and prevailed. I remember my classmate, a girl, we were up performers back then. So I remember her dancing passionately to all the things she said by tattoo during our class evening party, and our teacher turned off the music, shouting,
"What's going on here? You think it's fine to dance to the music like this? One girl is in love in another girl. Do you think it's fine? Do you think it's normal?"
I'm not sure where from our school teacher, where from she picked that knowledge that same-sex love is something inappropriate. Probably it's because she was a lady who was brought up during the Soviets, and the Soviet Union was a closed country. It was almost totalitarianism, and everything that was not traditional was considered abnormal. In late 90s, early 2000s, we had MTV here in Russia. We were shown many American TV shows, reality shows, and of course, many bizarrely looking pop and rock stars. They were introduced to Russian audience, mostly to millennials who were kids back then. I remember myself every time Placebo or Finland's HIM were shown on TV, I was really excited to watch it. I was a kid, I didn't give a damn who those people, Brian Molko and Ville Valo, who they slept with. I just liked their style and their music. But for some reason, once when I offered to play The Funeral of Hearts during a school party, my classmates, we were around 14 or 15 years old, they told me, "Hey, we can't listen to this music. Can't you see that the frontman wears makeup? He must be a fake." I was really shocked. To me, it was probably the first confrontation with the real world. Before that, I lived in a world of pop stars, and I thought the more eccentric you look, the better. Yes, I was an MTV kid, I guess. But still, the fact that I liked the look of many pop and rock stars, it was not about the gay things at all, but people in my country and probably across the globe back then, they automatically considered a guy who wore makeup a thing. In other words, everything that was not traditional was considered bad. That's it. And by the way, the whole world, maybe even the United States, was not the liberal place it is nowadays. I believe across the globe, everything was pretty much conservative as well. By the time tattoo broke up, same-sex marriage was only legal in 2 countries across the globe, the Netherlands and Belgium. But the fact that it all started in late 90s and early 2000s from Russia, it cannot help but startling and astonishing. I mean, look at all those young gay guys and girls across the globe, in Taiwan, in Mexico, in the United States, everywhere, visiting tattoo shows. Even the fact that they subsequently stated that they had never been lesbians, even the fact that one of them, Julia Volkova, allowed herself homophobic statements, it all cannot shut off their earlier advances in spreading the human rights ideas across the globe. In a nutshell, It was really great. I mean, the fact that this band, this duo existed. I truly believe it impacted the whole globe in a positive way. The whole globe, except for Russia. In our country, with each passing year, it's been getting worse and worse. In 2002, leader of People's Party of the Russian Federation, Gennady Rykov, introduced a bill restoring criminalization of homosexual practices between men. The bill implied imprisonment for up to 5 years. It took more than 2 years, not until 2004, for the State Duma's committee to reject the bill, as it was incompatible with the constitution. A couple of years later, there was another attempt by Alexander Chuyev. That was the first attempt to accept the gay propaganda law. We all know that nowadays this law against gay propaganda does exist in Russia, but back then in 2006 Chuyev was not successful in promoting that bill. So the bill was rejected. It was just an attempt. But it didn't happen because the government was less homophobic. The real attitude of the uppermost echelon of Russia's power structure is that they haven't ever really cared about gay people, nor about straight people. Everyone understands that there are gay or bisexual people and straight people amongst themselves, just like among any other communities. The real reason why Chuyev's bill was rejected in 2006 is that the government by then hadn't yet chosen its policy. The authorities, they didn't have ideology, they know they want to promote among the citizens. So it could have been communist dictatorship as in China, it could have been authoritarianism as in the Emirates. They could have chosen European democracy as the country's trajectory, but in fact just nothing was chosen as the number one policy of the party in power. The government didn't have its ideology, it didn't promote any values. And Putin was not old back then, he was 50 something. Well, actually the only goal the authorities did pursue back then was its own enrichment and the retention of power. But those were the boring bureaucracy and the youth, the teenagers. Oh, they had nothing to do with it. For God's sake, 2007 came. Not just came, but stormed into lives of Russians. This is a very special year in the history of Russia. This is when everything went wild. In the streets of all Russian cities from the country's westernmost region of Kaliningrad, of course including the capital cities of Moscow and St. Petersburg, including cities with a million-plus population like Nizhny Novgorod, Yekaterinburg and others, and up to the Russian Far East, including big and small cities and towns in Siberia, and even remote villages and rural areas. All streets were full of, are you ready, emo kids. I truly believe that the emo movement of those years wasn't just about the music genre. It was a full-scale counterculture, especially in the context of Russia, that then yesterday had been a country full of awful stereotypes regarding how a man should look like. Shortly before in 90s, the idea that a man ought not to wear an earring even was being pushed in movies, in talk shows, in society.
Это что, две бухи?
Это? Серьга.
Нужно снять.
Зачем?
Не положено. Нужно снять.
And now it's 2007, just 7 years past the millennium, and the whole country is just swarming with flamboyant guys wearing tight pants, eye-lined, crazy hairdos. It was crazy, and I know that the emo tag in a conversation often attracts scorn or green or wry smile, but in fact you cannot underestimate the importance of subcultures and its role in social advancement in many fields, from marketing to spreading the ideas of human rights. I'm not saying that 100% of the emo culture representatives who were males were gay. Of course not, but being an openly gay guy when all of your friends are fans of My Chemical Romance was easier. I even think that those guys and girls, they were the first generation here in Russia whose coming out of closet was pretty easy. I think gay boys who were emo, they were not afraid they would be judged by their friends. It was even trendy among the emo guys to state that you're gay or asexual or bisexual. It gave you more scores. By saying you're gay, you attracted more attention to your own personality. So emo guys and girls were the first generation in Russia who probably destroyed the stigma against gay people. Well, at least it was a really good attempt to do so, and most often it all was in unawareness. I mean, of course, emo guys didn't give a damn as to what it looked like in the eyes of policymakers, whether it helped evolvement of liberalism ideas or communism ideas. Of course not, they were kids, teenagers. Almost simultaneously in those years, LGBTQA+ rights activist and lawyer Nikolai Alexeyev founded Gay Russia Project. It is known for organizing Moscow Prides in those years, starting from 2006. Those were unauthorized rallies, of course, and spontaneous mass demonstrations are illegal in Russia, and protesters can face fines and jail. Activists, of course, were detained, as the prides were not allowed by the local, Moscow, and St. Petersburg's government. Then the organization extended its campaign and attempted to organize street public actions in Russia's smaller cities. All of the actions were banned by the government, and each time Alexeyev appealed its banned actions through courts in Russia, and Russian courts denied to even take the cases into consideration. And then Alexeyev each time sent them to the European Court of Human Rights, and sometimes he won the cases, and as far as I understand, sometimes he even received money for it from Russian government. I mean, he won the cases against the Russian government, so that the European Court of Human Rights obliged Russia to pay Alexeyev for violation of human rights. But that was very weird. Activists from Russia's smaller cities, they were scathing about Alexeyev's actions. What he did during those years was more like a hype run and not a fight for LGBTQA+ rights. Those futile attempts to get authorization for rallies in Moscow, and then not having got it, he turned to some unknown rural places across this large country. And those places, they were extremely homophobic and not tolerant. A flamboyant guy could not possibly live in those places without hiding his existence. And what does Alexeyev do? He asks the local, this small city's government to hold a gay rights rally in there. And his application states something like, "Very soon, a gay pride is going to happen in your God's forgotten village." What is it if not hype?
Чучело!
Извините, пожалуйста, но... Простите,
В шляпе!
Были толерантны и терпимы. Но это, конечно, очень трогательно.
But accept criticism. There was obvious progress in Alexeyev's actions. His campaign to end ban on HIV+ foreigners entering the country, and his campaign for lifting ban on blood donation by gay people in this country. They were successful, and this success should be credited to him, of course, Nikolai Alexeyev. Besides that, this person, Alexeyev, he also makes lots of appearances on the government-owned TV channels. I must say that all television is under complete control of the state. It's been this way for 20 years. So he takes part in those propaganda talk shows, and it makes us believe that he was already by then bought by the government. So yeah, there's an opinion, I'm not saying it's right, that Russia's then #1 LGBTQA+ right activist Nikolai Alexeyev has always been just a decoy duck. And the whole thing with his appearances on TV and those stupid attempts to hold rallies across Russia, it was all set up. In other words, it was the Kremlin's project. Again, I'm not saying that's the truth, but there's reasonable cause to trust those allegations. Closer to 2010s, there's an outbreak of homophobia on television and hence in society. Looks like the government coined, finally, its ideology and its enemy. Like, in 2005, for instance, when it came to talks about LGBTQA+ rights, the authorities just ignored the issue. They were like, we have other problems to solve. And that was partially true. And then there's a policy shift. The government realized it would be great to build the nation around the new ideology. So closer to 2010s, the state's new ideology is extreme conservatism and reliance on traditional values. And the government, through television of course, it tries to buttress popular support by inventing external enemies. And those are illegal migrants, pro-Western liberals, and guess who? Gay people, right. And that was just the choice taken by the government. Those imaginary enemies could be different. They could be vegans, rock musicians, bikers, geeks, hikikomoris, K-pop admirers, but the choice turned to pro-Westerners and especially those who support human rights ideas. It's no coincidence that gay people were chosen as the #1 enemy, as it's quite easy to deceive the nation to believe that gay people are sodomists and have pernicious influence on society, especially on minors, which is apparently confusion of notions. So every time those word shakers on Russian TV, the gun-flown bear is Vitaly Milonov, by the way, every time they talk about gay people, they make the audience imagine something like Folsom Street Fair. And as I said, this is nothing but confusion of notions. BD, YouTube censorship, SM practices are taken by straight people as well. Minor attracted person could equally well be straight people. So the TV propagandists try to tell the society this thing.
If you give the right to LGBTQA+, your kids are going to see perverts and dirty-minded freaks outdoors.
Just in the streets of your cities, towns and villages. And they'll grow up and be the same. I must say that this discourse about fetishes, kinky stuff, everything, it's also tabooed and stigmatized, especially among those who are over 50 years old and those who are from the hinterland, which is all the territory outside Moscow. This is thanks in no small part to the fact that the topic of sex, again YouTube censorship, this topic was prohibited in the Soviet Union. People who brought up and lived most parts of their lives in that country, they are convinced that intercourse is nothing but depravity into which American civilization has fallen. This concept is still being supported by many conservative people in Russia. And this is a non-losing strategy for the propagandists on the Russian TV. In early 2010s, the discourse becomes explicitly homophobic. Deputy Director of channel Russia, who's also a newscaster and propagandist. And just Putin's shock jock, Dmitry Kiselov, calls for burning gay hearts, and not only should gays be prohibited from donating organs, but their hearts upon death should be burned and buried because they are unsuitable for extending the life of another. So, a very interesting rhetoric, as you may see.
За что вы любите Владимира Путина?
Ну, я скорее уважаю его и...
То есть не любите?
Ну, в каком смысле? Сейчас идет путаница. По-крестьянски я люблю его, конечно, да.
Still, in early 2010s, there were TV shows that featured gay people. I remember Pavel Petel, who was often compared to Conchita Wurst. He's a part of the first wave of YouTube creators. So I remember him taking part in a dating show on TV, and according to the plot, he was choosing his partner from among both girls and guys. So that was okay to broadcast that on the federal TV. Ukraine-born, now residing in Germany, Russian-speaking YouTuber of the first wave, Serun Helia, was also shown in prime time on Russia's Channel 1. It was a freak talk show though, but still, everything was okay in terms of the visibility of the LGBTQA+ people. And then in 2013, Russia's notorious gay propaganda law was given birth. The bill was signed by Vladimir Putin personally. The anti-propaganda law introduces fines of up to 5,000 rubles for citizens who spread information aimed at minors, directed at forming non-traditional setup, or which may cause a distorted understanding that gay and heterosexual relations are socially equivalent.
Okay.
And only then, when homophobia became official, when it became political, only then all gay were squeezed out of TV. They were not shown on TV any longer. In real life, everything was awful as well. Those were the times of Tisak, a person who started a movement that entrapped gay men through fake social media profiles under the guise of meeting other gay men, and the victims of the movement he had organized, they were humiliated on camera and everything was posted online. He said he was promoting national socialism. He also claimed that he was fighting those minor attracted persons, but more often than not, the targets were just gay men. So again, it was confusion of notions, and those were the most terrifying years for gay men across Russia. I must say that Tesak was a very controversial person. He was a vocal critic of Putin's regime, but he was arrested and then in prison. Well, probably he committed suicide, but some people do believe he was killed. Well, anyways, a number of anti-gay groups grew in society. He was a very popular internet personality and lots of people followed him and his ideas. They thought it was right. So what he did, it all helped growing homophobia in the country. Despite all of those attempts taken by the government-owned TV to convince the society that gay people are the cause of all troubles in Russia. Here in Russia, it was also the time, early 2010s, when television stopped being the only source of information and the only source of entertainment. Emerge of the internet and social networks did its part. A number of openly gay people on YouTube grew. Young guys and girls, they were not afraid to express themselves on social media, and the government then, it didn't lay their hands upon the internet. So the internet was a free zone. You could do anything and even say anything on social networks. And the youth took that opportunity. So despite the fact that the law was already passed, YouTubers and Instagrammers did what they wanted to do. They didn't even think to be afraid because it was just on the internet. And the attitude towards the internet was different. No one in the government took it seriously. One of the most outstanding key opinion leader is Andrew Petrov. He started on Periscope and then grew on Instagram. Initially those were short, simple, yet provocative videos that kicked up a roll. It brought him his first audience. Well, Russian audience was really easy to be shocked and scandalized, taking the nation's inclination to stereotype everything. Later in his career, he grew into a member of the opposition, I would say of Navalny caliber. During his career, he made lots of controversial and scandalous statements and actions, but in fact, what he's been doing is showing the society that it's okay to be gay, it's okay to wear makeup, it's okay for a guy to wear dresses, that people are different. So he really managed to attract attention to his personality, and then he used his fame to push the human rights ideas. That's what he's been doing, as I can see it. Crucial moment is that he's among the few who actually came out as a gay person. It's almost unexplainable, like it was obvious from the very start of his career that he's gay, but before he came out officially on his YouTube channel, before he recorded and uploaded that coming out video. Before that, he was allowed to appear on television. He took part in a music video of one of Russian pop stars. He took part in a makeupper's reality show on TV. But then, after he made that coming out video, access was closed. He could not appear on the government-owned TV any longer, which is, I believe, nothing but display of the government's and society's hypocrisy. So this man, he has a huge army of followers, he's a real influencer, and I can see how the society, with the emerge of the social networks and thanks to people like him, how the society have changed. Lots of men of any age are no longer afraid to express themselves on dating apps, for instance. There appeared lots of profiles on apps like Tinder or Badoo that state that a man's sexuality is bisexual, or at least questioning. People, especially in the big cities, are not afraid to tell the world who they are. So before that, in 90s and early 2010s, it was like almost all men who were bisexuals, they were afraid to admit they were bisexual, so they married girls, gave birth to children, and then it all went wrong and lives of so many people were spoiled because it was initially built on the lies to yourself. But unfortunately, I have no expectation that this is going to last subsequently, as the government's policy is leaning to some conservative.
Hey guys, it's Sam editing. So my predictions came true. Russia's parliament is working on expanding the scope of the gay propaganda law. It had previously banned the so-called gay propaganda among children only. Very soon, it's going to be illegal to even say that you're gay. I'm already on the topic, soon I'll drop it on my channel.
American social networks are being banned in Russia, and Russian social networks like VK that had originally been alright, it was great under Durov. So Russian social networks are being promoted, and you cannot promote Western values on Russian social networks. Best case scenario is your profile is going to be banned. Worst, you'll be fined or put behind bars for forming non-traditional setup. My presumption is that everything's going to be worse and worse. Everyone who looks different will be considered bad, especially outside Moscow and St. Petersburg. When the war started, it became even worse. Russia's new enemies are the Westerners, just like I said. People in Russia make fun of the fact that there are transgender people among the United States military personnel. Russians think it's funny and is something to make fun of. They post it on their stories on Instagram, through VPN of course, because Instagram's banned. I do realize that right now it's probably not the time to attract attention to LGBTQA+ issues, but still, Russian TV propagandists do it. Recently, head of Russia Today and one of the most brilliant propagandists, Margarita Simonyan, openly abused, I'd say insulted, Maxim Galkin, a Russian comedian and television presenter. He had never came out as a gay person, but Simonyan did what's called outing. It was shortly after he had spoken out on the special operation issue. So, why not? This rhetoric is not prohibited in this country. It's the opposite. This rhetoric is even recommended. So guys, I'm sorry my video is not a broad picture of what has been happening and what is happening. Not a big number of activists remained in the country. I'm sorry I didn't mention Igor Kochetkov, a person who dedicated probably his life to the human rights issue. I guess there'll be more videos on the topic on my channel, so don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the thumbs up button. Thanks for watching if you're still here. Bye.